My name is Lila Reynolds. I'm 35 years old, and I work as an architect in Boston. I've spent most of my life feeling like the invisible daughter in my family. My sister Chloe is the golden child, the beautiful, social, always in trouble, but always forgiven one. And me, I'm the responsible one, the one who didn't need anything. So no one ever bothered to ask if I was okay. The only person who ever truly saw me was Grandpa Henry. He built a wooden cabin by Willow Creek with his own two hands back in the 1970s. To outsiders, it was just an old rustic house with a creaky dock. To me, it was everything. A place where I learned to fish, read books by the fire, and listen to Grandpa's quiet stories about life and hard work. When he passed away 5 years ago, his will changed everything. To my granddaughter, Lila Reynolds, who understands the peace of this place, I leave the Willow Creek cabin and all that belongs to it. For the first time, I felt chosen. My parents forced a smile. Chloe rolled her eyes. But I didn't care. The cabin was mine, and so were all the memories inside it. I thought it would always be my sanctuary. I thought it was untouchable. I was wrong. One bright autumn morning, I drove up to the cabin, humming along to the radio, planning to spend the weekend painting the porch and prepping for winter. But as soon as I turned onto the gravel road, my stomach sank. The old carved sign, Henry's Haven, was gone. Fresh tire tracks cut into the dirt. And then, I saw it. A moving truck in the driveway. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining things. Maybe my parents had hired someone to help with repairs. But as I parked and stepped out, I saw strangers carrying my grandfather's rocking chair out of the cabin. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice trembling. "What's going on here?" The woman looked up, startled but polite. "Oh, hello there. Are you from the neighborhood?" My chest tightened. "No, I'm Lila Reynolds. This is my cabin. My property." The couple exchanged a glance that made my stomach drop. "Sweetheart," the man said gently, "we bought this cabin 3 weeks ago. Closed on it last Friday. Your parents handled everything. Thomas and Elaine Reynolds." I felt my whole body go cold. They sold it. He handed me the folder. Deed transfer. Sales documents. Signatures. And then I saw it. My name. But it wasn't mine. A sloppy fake signature. The words slipped out of me like a broken whisper. "This isn't my signature." I sat in my car, staring at the cabin that held my entire childhood, while strangers carried my life out the door. And in that moment, I knew 2 things my parents had stolen from me. My family would never be the same again. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I could still see them, those strangers, carrying out pieces of my childhood. Grandpa Henry's rocking chair, the photo frames from the hallway, even the old canoe paddles we had used to explore Willow Creek. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call my parents and demand an explanation. But a part of me already knew the truth. This wasn't a mistake. This was betrayal. When I finally drove away from the cabin, I didn't go home. I drove straight to the county records office. My heart pounded in my ears as the clerk typed my address into her computer. "Yes, it was sold 3 weeks ago," she said matter-of-factly. "Chash sale." "New deed recorded in the Petersons' name. Chash sale," I whispered. She nodded and turned the screen toward me. And there it was, proof. My parents' signatures on every page. And then my name. Forged. I felt sick. The clerk lowered her voice. "Ani, this is serious. You might want to talk to a lawyer." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my apartment surrounded by old photo albums, flipping through memories of the cabin grandpa, teaching me to whittle wood on the porch. My first fish, tiny and flopping, in my 7-year-old hands. The summer nights we slept on the dock under a sky full of stars. And now it was all gone. Traded for 1 day of flowers, champagne, and my sister Chloe in a designer gown. Around 2 a.m. my phone buzzed. A text from Chloe, "Look at these floral centerpieces." The wedding is going to be magical. I stared at it for a long time before setting my phone down. She didn't know. Or maybe she did. Either way, I wasn't about to play the knave sister anymore. The next morning, I called Stephanie, my closest friend from college, and a real estate attorney. She listened quietly as I explained everything, my voice breaking halfway through. They forged my signature, Steph. My own parents sold my cabin for Chloe's wedding. I don't even know who they are anymore. She didn't hesitate. Leela, that's not just betrayal. That's felony fraud, forgery, theft. If you want your cabin back, we need to move fast. I hesitated. Do you think I should call the police? You can, but here's my advice, she said firmly. First, we gather every piece of evidence. Deeds, bank statements, any messages from your family. If we go in blind, they'll spin it like you agreed to this. She was right. My parents had been spinning stories about me my whole life. How I was so independent. How I didn't need much. How Chloe deserved a little more help. This time, I wasn't giving them that chance. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own life. I printed bank statements and highlighted the $350,000 cash deposit that appeared the day the cabin sold. I took screenshots of Chloe's Instagram posts, her diamond bracelet, the luxury honeymoon, the $20,000 floral arch, all posted within days of the sale. I spoke to Dorothy, the cabin's elderly neighbor, who hesitated before whispering. I heard your parents say they had to sell quick. Before you found out, I thought you knew. Every discovery twisted the knife deeper. But with each document I collected, my resolve hardened. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to wait. Chloe's wedding was in 4 weeks, and on the outside I would smile and nod. I would be the quiet, dutiful sister. But the morning after that wedding, the truth would land like a hammer. I would get my cabin back. And my parents would finally learn that the daughter they underestimated had teeth. 4 weeks later, I found myself standing in front of the Grand Rosewood Hotel, staring up at the ballroom windows glowing like gold. Inside, Chloe's engagement party was already underway. Small pre-celebration, as she called it. Small apparently meant 300 guests, a string quartet, and a champagne fountain taller than me. I took a deep breath before walking in. Tonight, I wasn't here to fight. I was here to watch. The ballroom hit me like a wave of perfume and noise, ice sculptures glittering under chandeliers. Orchids and roses spilling off every table. Guests dressed in black tie, holding crystal flutes like they were in a magazine spread. And right in the center, my sister Chloe, beaming in a white beaded gown that could pass for a wedding dress. "Lila!" She squealed when she saw me, rushing over in heels that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Finally, isn't this amazing? I forced a smile. It's impressive. Just wait until the wedding, she gushed, fireworks. A custom stage. Oh, and look, Mom and Dad got me a diamond bracelet. She held out her wrist, the diamonds catching the chandelier light. I felt my stomach twist. Thinking of Grandpa Henry's cabin, sold for these little sparkling stones. Across the room, my parents were laughing with the wedding planner near the champagne fountain. I drifted closer, careful to stay behind a cluster of guests. The fireworks will add 20,000 to the budget, the planner said cheerfully. My mother hesitated. Are we sure we can? My father cut her off. The cabin money covered the essentials. We'll put the extras on the line of credit. The cabin money. My money. I nearly dropped my glass. Then Chloe clinked her spoon against a crystal flute. Everyone, a quick toast! The room hushed, and Chloe took center stage with James, her fiancé. I just want to thank my amazing parents for giving me the wedding of my dreams, she said, voice dripping with emotion. And a very special thank you to my sister Leela, whose generosity made this all possible. All eyes turned to me. I froze. Guests started applauding. James even raised his glass toward me. Thank you for the lake cabin, sis, he said with a grin. I forced a tight smile and raised my glass. I didn't trust myself to speak. Inside, my blood was ice. They weren't just thieves. They were building a public story where I was the willing donor, the loving sister who sacrificed her inheritance. I slipped into the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. My reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. Calm face, burning eyes. I splashed water on my cheeks and whispered to myself, let them have their night. Tomorrow the reckoning begins. The morning of Chloe's wedding felt like something out of a movie. Perfect weather, golden sunlight, and a calm breeze that made the white church ribbons flutter like angel wings. Guests were already buzzing, taking photos of the vintage rolls. Royces lined up to drive us to the Rosewood estate for the reception. I slid into the bridesmaid's car, wearing the pale pink gown Chloe had chosen, feeling like a ghost at my own sister's fairy tale. Inside the church, the spectacle unfolded. Orchids and roses where thousands lined every pew. A string quartet played as sunlight streamed through the stained glass. Chloe walked in, radiant in her 20s custom French gown, crying perfect little tears on cue. From the front row, my parents beamed like royalty. And me, I stood on the sidelines, holding Chloe's bouquet during the vows, feeling like every smile was a lie. Because I knew what no one else in that church did. This wedding was built on theft. The reception at Rosewood Estate was worse. The ballroom had been transformed into a luxury fantasy, a tent-piece live band on a custom-built stage, gold flaked desserts, and a raw oyster bar. Thousands of twinkling lights and chandeliers reflecting off crystal tableware, and in the center of it all, a fountain of champagne, identical to the one at the engagement party, bubbling like liquid gold. As the night unfolded, I played my part. I smiled in the photos. I clapped during the toasts. I even danced when guests pulled me onto the floor. But inside I was counting every rose, every ice sculpture, every sparkle of Chloe's diamond earrings. I counted them in pieces of my stolen cabin, every memory my parents had traded away for this performance. Then came the toasts. My father stood first, glass in hand. To my beautiful daughter Chloe and her wonderful new husband James, he said proudly, "Your mother and I have spared no expense to give you the day you deserve. May your marriage be as perfect as tonight." The crowd cheered. Then Chloe swayed up to the microphone, a little tipsy, her face flushed with joy. And of course, she said, eyes locking on me, none of this would have been possible without my sister, Leela. She gave up something so dear to her, so I could have my dream wedding. I'll never forget that. Applause erupted. Dozens of faces turned toward me with admiration. I raised my glass and nodded once, silent, calm, because tomorrow, the silence would end. That night, as the fireworks exploded over the estate, I stepped away from the crowd and stared up at the sky. Behind me, people were cheering, music was blasting, and Chloe was twirling in her glittering gown like a queen. But I wasn't watching the show. I was thinking about Grandpa Henry's cabin, the quiet ripples of Willow Creek, and the letter I had written to my parents. By this time tomorrow, they would have it in their hands, and their perfect little world would start to crack. The morning after the wedding, Boston felt unnervingly quiet. No fireworks, no champagne, no music, just me, sitting in my apartment with a cup of black coffee and a plan. At 9 a.m. sharp, a courier knocked on my parents' front door. Inside that envelope was everything. The legal documents proving the fraudulent sale, witness statements, including the neighbor who overheard them plotting, bank records showing the cash deposit from my cabin sale tied to wedding expenses, and my letter. The letter was short, but sharp as a knife. Mom, Dad, you didn't just sell a cabin. You sold my childhood, my sanctuary, and Grandpa Henry's legacy. You forged my name. You lied to the family. You funded a wedding by stealing from your own daughter. I am taking legal action to reclaim what is mine. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a betrayal, and the world is about to know the truth. It's 9:15 a.m. My phone started buzzing. First my father, then my mother, then both, back to back. I let them go to voicemail. 9:30 a.m., the text began, Leela, call us immediately. This is a terrible misunderstanding. Dad, sweetheart, we can explain. Please don't do this to your sister. Mom, family can fix this. Don't involve lawyers. Dad, again I stared at the screen, feeling a cold calm settle over me. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about themselves. Around 100 p.m., an international number lit up my phone. I already knew who it was. Leela? Chloe's voice was panicked, breathless. Mom and Dad are freaking out. They said you're suing them the day after my wedding. How could you be so selfish? I let the silence stretch before answering. Did they tell you why? They said something about the cabin. That you changed your mind, Chloe. I said quietly. They forged my signature. They stole my cabin to pay for your wedding. Did you know? There was a long pause on the line. I knew the money came from the cabin, she whispered. But they told me you agreed. I thought you were just being generous. Generous. My voice shook. You thought I'd trade my inheritance, Grandpa's entire legacy, for a one-day party with fireworks. She sniffled. It's not just one day, it's my marriage. I cut her off, my tone icy. No, Chloe. Your marriage is yours. But the crime is theirs. And now they'll face it. She started to cry. You're ruining everything. James wants to come home early. He's furious. I hung up without a word. No more explanations. No more guilt. By evening, my phone had dozens of missed calls from relatives. Apparently, my parents had started doing what they always did, spinning the story. But this time, I had the truth. This time, I had proof. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet, invisible daughter anymore. I was the storm they never saw coming. The next afternoon, I drove to my parents' house with Stephanie, my attorney, and the only person I fully trusted. When we pulled up, I noticed 3 extra cars in the driveway. My parents hadn't just called me. They had called in the cavalry. Inside the living room, the scene was almost theatrical, my parents on the couch, pale and jittery. Chloe and James sitting stiffly, fresh off their honeymoon with swollen eyes from crying. Uncle David and Aunt Marlene, our families, peacekeepers, perched on the armchairs. The room went silent when I walked in. My father stood. Leela, honey, we can talk about this. No need for. I gestured toward Stephanie. She's not just my friend today. She's my attorney. And after what you did, I'm not speaking to either of you without legal counsel present. My mother's lip trembled. This is family business. Lawyers will only make it worse. I sat down across from them, calm and cold. No, Mom. You already made it worse. You forged my name. You sold the cabin. And then you paraded me as the generous sister at a wedding built on theft. Stephanie opened her laptop and projected the evidence onto their TV. Deed transfer with my forged signature. Bank statements showing the $350,000 cash deposit followed by luxury withdrawals for the wedding. Chloe's Instagram posts. Time stamped to match the withdrawals. A sworn statement from Dorothy, the neighbor, confirming she overheard them plotting to sell before I found out. Each slide landed like a punch. By the time Stephanie showed the forged notary stamp, my parents looked like their souls had left their bodies. Finally, I spoke. Do you have any idea what you've done? Not just to me, but to this family. Chloe sniffled. I didn't know about the forgery. I thought you agreed. I turned to her, voice flat. You wanted to believe that because it was easier than facing the truth. Just like Mom and Dad always made it easier for you to take and for me to give. My father sank into his chair. Well, we made a mistake. We were trying to give Chloe her dream wedding. We thought we could make it right later. Be lying to me, by gaslighting the entire family into thinking I agreed. No one spoke. The silence was suffocating. Finally, I leaned forward, my voice steady as ice. Here's what happens now. You repay every penny, plus damages. You issue a public apology to the family for lying. You get counseling. Because the way you've treated me my whole life ends here. My mother nodded, tears spilling down her face. Wit will do whatever it takes. For your sake, I said, standing, I hope that's true. Because the DA won't be as forgiving as I am. I walked out. Stephanie behind me, leaving the room in stunned silence. And for the first time in my life, I felt like the one holding the power. The weeks after that family confrontation felt surreal. On the surface, Boston carried on like nothing happened. People rushed to work, coffee shops buzzed. Leaves fell along the Charles River. But inside my world, everything had cracked open. Stephanie and I filed the necessary legal documents to invalidate the fraudulent sale. The county court issued a temporary injunction blocking any further transactions on the cabin. The Petersons, the innocent couple who thought they had bought my home, were informed of the fraud and, to their credit, were surprisingly compassionate. My parents faced a choice: repay the entire sum plus damages or face criminal charges. 3 weeks later, my parents liquidated investments and took out a home equity loan to pay me back. The district attorney agreed to a plea deal: no jail time if they paid full restitution. 300 hours of community service each, mandatory family counseling. When I signed the final paperwork to reclaim the cabin, I felt a strange mix of victory and grief. I had won. But nothing would ever be the same. The first time I drove back to Willow Creek after getting the keys again, I almost didn't recognize the place. The Petersons had moved out quickly, leaving the cabin in disarray. Boxes half unpacked, furniture shifted. It felt violated. I stood in the empty living room, running my hand along the stone fireplace, and whispered, "I got it back, Grandpa. I kept my promise." Then I cried. Not the sharp, angry tears from the day I found the moving truck. These were slow, heavy tears of release. Over the next few months, I poured myself into restoring the cabin, repainting the walls, sanding the wooden floors Grandpa had built with his own hands, planting a small garden by the dock, a splash of life against the calm water. Each nail I hammered, each board I polished, felt like stitching my soul back together. Meanwhile, my relationship with my family changed forever. Chloe's voice on the phone was smaller, cautious, like a child afraid to break something else. My parents kept apologizing, but the words felt light compared to the weight of what they'd done. Family dinners became rare, quiet, and polite. One night, during a rare visit, my mother said softly, "We always thought you were strong enough to live without us." That made it easy to keep giving to Chloe. We didn't see how cruel that was until now. I nodded, but inside, I knew some walls could never be rebuilt. A year later, the cabin had become my sanctuary again. I hosted quiet weekends with friends, read books on the dock, and let the seasons pass over the water like time washing old wounds. One summer evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I whispered to myself, "I matter. My boundaries matter, and I'll never let anyone take that from me again." Because the truth is, reclaiming the cabin wasn't just about property. It was about reclaiming myself. It's been 3 years since the day I discovered the moving truck in front of Grandpa Henry's cabin. 3 years since the moment my world split into before and after. And now, every time I drive down that familiar gravel road, a part of me braces, like I'm still that stunned, broken girl seeing strangers carry my life away. But then I see it. The wooden sign I hand-carved myself, Henry's Haven. The dock stretching over the quiet creek, the cabin, my cabin, standing proud and whole again, and a different feeling blooms inside me. Peace. Ownership. Power. But the truth is, healing didn't come easy. The first year after the betrayal, my emotions were like the seasons on Willow Creek. Winter was pure numbness. I went through life on autopilot, quietly angry at everyone. Spring was the ache of memory. Every flower bloom reminded me of what was almost lost. Summer came with fire, the resolve to reclaim my voice, to make this space mine again. And finally fall, acceptance. The leaves fell, and with them, the version of me who believed family love was unconditional. Now, I understand that love without boundaries isn't love. It's permission for people to keep taking until there's nothing left. One night, last autumn, I lit the stone fireplace Grandpa built and sat on the rug with a glass of wine. I imagined him sitting across from me, in his flannel shirt, smiling that quiet smile. And for the first time, I said the words out loud. I forgave myself for staying silent too long. The crackle of the fire was the only reply, but it felt like he was there. "My family, we're different now." Chloe tries to bridge the gap with small messages and photos of her daughter Emma. She writes things like, Emma can't wait to see the cabin. I know she means, I want to do better than our parents did. My parents are still walking through the slow crawl of guilt and therapy. We meet on neutral ground, never in the cabin. I need that space to remain mine, untouched by their history. I don't hate them, but I don't let them in past the gate anymore either. And that's okay. Because now, I trust myself more than I trust anyone else. Standing on the dock last week, I watched the sun dip low, turning the creek into liquid gold. For a moment, I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who spent years giving, apologizing, shrinking herself so others could shine. And I whispered to her, "You're safe now. You're seen. And you will never disappear for anyone again. Family can break you in ways strangers never could. But you always have the right to stand up, to draw the line, to choose yourself, even if your voice shakes. Have you ever had to defend your boundaries against family? Did it break you or set you free? Share your story below. And if mine touched you, share and subscribe to Telling Story with Me. Because sometimes the bravest story we tell is the one where we finally say, I matter, too.